Chosen one, there is a sacred truth many never learn until they are standing at the edge of themselves. Heaven never asked you to be unbreakable. You were never created to carry the world on your back while silently drowning beneath the weight of expectations, responsibilities, and silent emotional battles. True strength was always meant to breathe life into you, not drain it out of you. Real resilience was meant to anchor you, not chain you to suffering. And yet somewhere along the journey, you began believing that being strong meant ignoring your pain, dismissing your exhaustion, hiding your tears, and continuing forward even when your spirit was whispering, "Please, I can't do this anymore." Have you ever wondered why you kept pushing long after your soul was begging for rest? Why you kept saying, "I'm fine," even when every part of you was unraveling inside? There is a holy difference between strength and overextension. And chosen one, you were crossing that sacred line without realizing it. Strength is when your courage and your spirit work together. Overextension is when your body keeps moving while your soul is left behind. Strength is rooted in purpose, alignment, faith, and inner peace. Overextension is fueled by fear, pressure, obligation, and the silent terror of disappointing others. One empowers you, the other slowly empties you. One lights your spirit, the other dims it until you forget what joy even feels like. Can you feel the truth in that? Can you remember the version of yourself that was operating, surviving, functioning, but not truly living anymore? You learned to endure pain instead of healing it. You learned to carry storms instead of seeking shelter. You were praised for holding everything together, even while you were quietly falling apart. People admired your strength, but they never saw the cost of it. They didn't see the nights you couldn't sleep because your mind wouldn't stop fighting. They didn't see the tears you wiped away before anyone could notice. They didn't see how your soul was slowly suffocating under a life that demanded everything and offered peace to no one, especially not you. Tell me, chosen one, have you ever felt like you were disappearing beneath the strength everyone applauded you for? Heaven watched you fight through things you never spoke about. The divine saw how you refused to collapse, even when collapsing would have been the most human, most honest, most necessary thing to do. The universe saw the way you kept loving, giving, showing up, sacrificing, and enduring. Even when your spirit was whispering for mercy, you weren't weak, you weren't failing. You were simply running out of pieces of yourself to keep handing away. And the truth is, you should never have had to break for anyone to see that you were hurting. Chosen one, the difference between strength and overextension is sacred. Strength honors your soul. Overextension betrays it. Strength aligns you with purpose. Overextension drags you away from it. Strength allows you to stand tall. Overextension eventually forces you to fall. And if you felt like life took a sudden turn, if it felt like something larger than you stepped in and interrupted the path you were on, maybe it wasn't punishment. Maybe it was divine protection. Maybe heaven said, "Enough. This warrior has carried too much for too long." So ask yourself, were you really being strong? Or were you slowly disappearing behind the mask of strength the world demanded from you? Your journey forward isn't about proving how much you can endure anymore. It's about finally honoring the sacred responsibility you have to your own soul. This is where healing begins. This is where strength becomes holy again. Chosen one, before collapse ever arrives with a roar, it always begins as a whisper. Long before life shatters, the soul tries to warn you. It doesn't scream at first. It speaks softly, gently, almost invisibly. It shows up as the tired smile you force in front of people so they won't worry. It hides inside those silent sighs when no one is watching. It lives in the heaviness you carry in your chest for reasons you can't explain. Did you ever feel that weight? Did you ever sense something was wrong, but you kept telling yourself, "I'm just tired," when in reality your spirit was quietly fading? There were moments where laughter didn't feel like laughter anymore. You were smiling, but you weren't actually present inside that smile. There were days when everything looked normal on the outside, yet inside there was a storm of emotions you were too exhausted to fight. Emotional exhaustion isn't loud, chosen one. It doesn't always come with breakdowns and tears. It often arrives disguised as numbness. You stopped reacting. You stopped feeling deeply. Not because you didn't care, but because your heart was running on empty. Have you ever felt yourself drifting like that? Alive, but not fully living? Then came the spiritual silence. You didn't feel inspired the way you once did. The fire you used to feel, that inner spark, that connection to something greater, it began to dim. Prayers felt heavy. Hope felt distant. Your mind kept functioning, but your spirit was quietly shutting down. And yet you kept going. You pushed forward. You showed up. You pretended you were okay because that's what strong people do, right? But chosen one, your soul was pleading for rest while your body kept marching into battle. There were unexplained heavinesses you couldn't name. Waking up felt harder. Simple tasks felt heavier. You weren't lazy. You were worn down by invisible battles that no one around you could see. The universe saw the quiet tears you didn't cry because even crying required energy you no longer had. Heaven saw how you kept holding yourself together with faith, stubbornness, and sheer survival instinct. You weren't weak. You were deeply overwhelmed. And let's be honest, did you ever notice how your intuition started whispering more frequently? That inner voice that said, slow down, pause, something isn't right. But life demanded movement. People depended on you. Expectations suffocated you. So you ignored the whisper. You told yourself to endure a little more. Be patient a little longer. Be strong just one more day. Until one more day became months, and months became survival. Your soul was warning you, but you didn't yet realize how close you were to breaking. Chosen one, those subtle signs were not random. They were divine alerts. They were spiritual warning lights flashing in the deepest parts of you. Before collapse comes chaos. The universe always sends gentle signals. Exhaustion was not weakness. Numbness was not failure. Heaviness was not your fault. They were messages from your soul saying, please save me before I disappear completely. So I ask you, can you look back now and see the moments your spirit was asking for help? Can you see how close you were to losing yourself? The truth is, you were far nearer to breaking than you realized. And those whispers were heaven's way of trying to protect you before the storm arrived. Chosen one, have you ever wondered why rescue didn't feel like rescue? Why divine protection didn't arrive wrapped in warmth, comfort, and gentle reassurance, but instead came crashing into your life like a storm that destroyed everything familiar? Sometimes heaven doesn't whisper. Sometimes it must shake the ground beneath your feet because you were too close to a breaking point that would have changed you in ways you may never have healed from. What you experienced wasn't punishment. It wasn't abandonment. It was intervention so urgent that softness wasn't enough. There came a moment when heaven could no longer wait for you to slow down willingly. You were drifting toward emotional collapse, running on spiritual fumes, convincing yourself you were fine while your soul was quietly unraveling. So the universe stepped in the only way it could, suddenly, dramatically, inconveniently. Plans fell apart, relationships ended, stability shattered, opportunities vanished. And you ask, well, why now? Why like this? Why does this feel like my world is collapsing instead of being saved? But chosen one, have you ever noticed that when a doctor performs emergency surgery, there's no time for politeness, only precision and urgency? That's what happened to you. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What looked like endings were divine closures to paths that were draining your life force. Some things were ripped away not because you didn't deserve them, but because they were slowly destroying you. Some people were removed not because you were unlovable, but because they were not meant to continue into your healing. Do you see it now? The chaos wasn't chaos. It was rescue dressed as disruption. Divine intervention rarely matches human preference. We want gentle guidance. Heaven sometimes must deliver spiritual shockwaves. You would have stayed. You would have tolerated. You would have sacrificed yourself quietly until nothing was left. So instead of letting you drown beautifully, the universe created a storm that forced you to release everything that was sinking you. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it felt unfair. Yes, it felt like everything was being taken. But chosen one, have you ever realized something had to break? And it couldn't be you. The interruption came because your destiny was still needed. Your purpose was still breathing. Your heart still had chapters to live. So life had to interrupt your collapse before you reached a point of no return. And even though everything felt chaotic, something deeper inside you knew this wasn't the end. It was a divine reset. It wasn't destruction, it was preservation. So let me ask you gently, can you look back now and see where protection was hiding inside the disruption? Can you see how heaven moved urgently because your spirit mattered too much to lose? One day, chosen one, you will thank the very chaos you once feared. Because you will realize it didn't ruin you, it saved you. Chosen one, there came a moment when your spirit could no longer pretend to be strong. A moment when the weight became too heavy, the silence too loud, the ache too deep to ignore. You reached that place where your mind couldn't keep pushing forward and your heart couldn't keep carrying what it was never meant to hold. And maybe you judged yourself for it. Maybe you thought, why am I like this? Why couldn't I handle it? Why did I fall apart? But listen carefully. That collapse was not your failure. It was divine timing. There are seasons where your soul is screaming, but you keep smiling. Where your inner child is trembling, but you keep saying, I'm okay. Where exhaustion sits in your bones, yet you still try to be the strong one, the dependable one, the one who never breaks. But heaven saw what people didn't. Heaven saw the tears nobody witnessed. Heaven felt the tremor in your spirit every time you said, I'm fine, when you were anything but. And so, chosen one, life allowed you to crumble, not to destroy you, but to finally release you from what was suffocating you. That breaking point was sacred. It was the moment heaven whispered, enough. Enough pretending. Enough surviving. Enough shrinking. Enough bleeding emotionally just to keep situations alive that were never meant to stay. The universe allowed the emotional walls to collapse because you were never meant to live inside a cage made of endurance and suppression. Sometimes strength is not holding everything together. Sometimes true strength is allowing yourself to fall apart so something real, healed, and aligned can be rebuilt. When everything cracked open, it wasn't the end of you. It was the moment destiny stepped in and said, now I can work. When your plans shattered, space was created for divine plans to enter. When your identity felt lost, the truth of who you are began to awaken. When your heart finally broke, the healing it had been begging for could finally begin. Do you realize how sacred that moment was? Do you see how your collapse didn't ruin your life? It rescued your life? Chosen one, you didn't fail. You reached the point where your soul refused to live in denial any longer. You reached the threshold where strength alone was no longer holy. Surrender became holy, and in that surrender, heaven moved. Your tears were not weakness, they were release. Your stillness wasn't giving up, it was divine pause. That moment you thought was your ending was actually a turning point written into your destiny. So I want to ask you gently, can you honor that moment instead of resenting it? Can you see how life didn't fall apart because you were weak? It fell apart because you deserved better than what you were surviving? One day, chosen one, you will look back and realize the moment you broke was the moment heaven began rebuilding you into someone freer, fuller, and more aligned than you've ever been. Your collapse wasn't your defeat, it was your divine beginning. Chosen one, let's breathe into this truth together. If life hadn't stopped you, you never would have slowed down enough to heal. You would have kept pushing, you would have kept performing strength, you would have kept walking with wounds that no one could see, convincing yourself that pain was normal and emptiness was simply life. But heaven loved you too much to let you live numb. So you were halted, not destroyed, not abandoned. Halted, paused, removed from the noise so you could finally hear your own soul again. When everything stopped, it might have felt like ruin, like you were losing momentum, losing opportunities, losing connections, losing identity. But chosen one, did you ever realize that what you were really losing was exhaustion? You were losing the weight that wasn't yours to carry. You were losing the illusions that kept you surviving instead of living. The pause was sacred. The stillness, though uncomfortable, became holy ground. When movement ended, healing began. When silence replaced busyness, Your spirit finally had room to breathe. This season created space, and space is where restoration happens. Space to feel the emotions you buried, space to grieve what hurt you, space to admit, I wasn't okay, without guilt, without pressure, without pretending. It was in that quiet that your nervous system began to soften. Your heart started learning safety again. Your mind, once racing, began to rest. Little by little, strength returned. Not the kind that breaks you, but the kind that holds you gently. The kind that feels grounded, peaceful, alive. Think about it. If you had continued at that pace, who would you have become? How much more of yourself would you have lost? How many dreams would have died in silence? Sometimes God must recalibrate your path by stopping your steps. Sometimes the universe must interrupt your collapse to rebuild your foundation. What you thought was the end of everything was actually the beginning of you. Your authentic self, your healed self, your awakened self. And chosen one, recovery is not loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It happens in soft mornings where you suddenly notice you can breathe easier, in nights where you realize your heart isn't as heavy, in moments where laughter returns, not forced, but natural. Have you begun to feel those moments yet? Even if they're small, do you sense that something inside you is slowly rebuilding? This wasn't punishment, it was preservation. This wasn't failure, it was realignment. Your life wasn't ruined, it was rerouted to save your spirit. And one day you will look back at this pause and whisper, thank you, because you will see how everything you lost was making room for everything your soul truly needed. You didn't stop because you were weak. You stopped because healing finally had permission to begin. Chosen one, there comes a sacred moment in every journey when the soul whispers, enough, enough pretending, enough stretching beyond your limits. Enough giving yourself away to situations, people, and expectations that never truly nourished your spirit. That moment is not defeat, it is awakening. It is the point where you finally understand that honoring your boundaries is not selfish. It is not weakness, it is sacred stewardship of the life, energy, and light you were born to carry. Have you felt that whisper, that gentle, insistent call from your own soul, asking you to stop bleeding for what doesn't feed you? For too long, you may have mistaken overextension for strength. You believed that endurance was proof of worth. You assumed that constant giving and silent suffering were marks of nobility. And yes, there was a time when those sacrifices were necessary, when they shaped resilience, character, and faith. But chosen one, heaven never intended for you to exhaust yourself on what diminishes your soul. The limits you feel now, those invisible walls that rise when your energy wanes, are not barriers to your purpose. They are holy boundaries, divine signals placed to protect the sacred vessel of your life, your heart, and your calling. Imagine the energy you wasted trying to please everyone, to survive every storm without pause, to carry every burden as if it was yours alone. Now imagine reclaiming that energy, reclaiming the hours, the attention, the love, the devotion you once poured into things that were not yours to carry. Those boundaries are not prisons, they are portals. Portals that allow you to walk fully into your destiny without being drained, without being diminished, without losing yourself along the way. Can you feel the relief in that truth? Can you sense the power in protecting what belongs to your spirit? Honoring your limits is not passive, it is active, it is deliberate, it is conscious devotion to your own sacredness. It means saying no to obligations that are misaligned with your calling. It means refusing to exhaust your heart on connections that take more than they give. It means protecting your time, your energy, your dreams, and your spiritual alignment as fiercely as you protect the life of someone you love. Because chosen one, you are someone your soul loves, and your boundaries are the vessel that keeps that love intact. From this moment forward, every no you speak to what drains you is a yes to the life you were meant to live. Every pause you take for rest, reflection, and replenishment is not a step back. It is a step toward divine alignment. Every boundary is a declaration. Your spirit matters. Your energy matters. Your calling matters. And heaven will honor you when you honor yourself first. So ask yourself, are you ready to walk in that sacred power? Are you ready to respect your limits as the holy guidance they were always meant to be? Because chosen one, when you do, life will bend in ways that finally serve your soul, not drain it.